Freshman, sophomore year, like college football was not even a thought. If a scholarship guy was going 100%, guy had to go 110%. I was like, I didn't even know like what to do. I probably started crying in the office.
All right, Brandon Bisack, welcome into Forever Forward, man.
Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, sure thing, dude. How are things? Let's start it there. How are things?
Things are great. Can't complain. Living in New York and
Spending every dollar we earn out here.
pretty much. That's what it seems like here in this city, but hey, it's part of life.
It is what it is. It's an experience, man. And just before we start, a quick announcement. We officially have a TikTok for Forever Forward, so if you're listening on Spotify or YouTube, go check us out. It's at Forever Forward Podcast. Been getting killed in the comments over there, so it's been pretty hilarious. But maybe to counterbalance that, we can have some love down below on this video. But anyways, Brandon, I think you've developed a really awesome underdog mindset. From kind of where you started to where you are now. And we're going to get into all of that. But I think, look, let's start it here. What would the Brandon of like 12 years ago look like today if he was sitting here?
I think I would have thought I would have probably looked a lot different. As you know, there was a big growth spurt in my life. So the Brandon of 15 years ago was maybe not as hopeful of what it could have been, but glad the way it turned out was a really fun journey that I know we'll unpack here today. But yeah, I don't think he had those expectations.
Well, let's start there. I mean, so we're going to be talking about football today because you were a Division I quarterback. You not only were a Division I athlete, but you also earned a scholarship after being kind of a preferred walk-on, which I think is really cool. But let's take it way back. Like, when did football start for you, and why did you, I guess, get into it?
Second grade football. That's when it really started. I remember Ryan Brown and I were second graders playing with the fourth and fifth grade team because our dads were the coach, and they just said, you know what, you're going to go in and play.
Yep.
And we got absolutely demolished. Basically, up until 8th grade, I was an defensive lineman.
And if I remember correctly, I think there was a weight limit that you had to be below to play anything but the line, right?
Yeah, the running joke was I was always the orange sticker helmet guy because if you overweight, you had to get an orange sticker on your helmet so they know you could play a skill position.
And so for those that don't know Brandon ultimately ended up becoming a quarterback, and that's kind of where you grew your career into. But at what point did you realize, like, look, I'm not going to play the line anymore, and I'm going to start exploring what else could be out there for me?
8th grade. I'd say 8th grade, I started to, do some stuff with the high school kids. And I always knew I had an arm and I loved throwing the ball. I would always, even when I was playing lineman, just like throw with people on the sidelines. That's what I enjoyed doing, my passion. And I think 8th grade into 9th grade, I think the funny fact was our freshman year team, I was quarterback at D-line. So like when we did defensive drills, I went to the defensive lineman. And I remember Coach Brown was like, and if you're a quarterback that also happens to play defensive line, you go that way.
Dude, that is so funny. I mean, but look, on a serious note, right? Like, it must have been a pretty interesting transformation for you to have gone from being kind of like the out of shape, sort of fat kid to all of a sudden now, like, you're starting to grow a lot. You're starting to get fit. Like, what was that like for you?
There was a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
I was, for context, 5'7", my freshman year, kind of trying to figure out quarterback. By junior year, I was 6'4". And so there was a lot that, my talent, like things just developed differently with you.
I was so pissed about that too, dude, because in high school, I was more like 5'4" and grew into maybe 5'7" by the time I graduated. And I just remember watching you like, fuck this guy, man. Getting so tall, getting so jacked.
Leverage is a thing, right? So my everything got longer. Leverage, like throwing became easier. Like I really started to enjoy it. There was no weight limit in high school. So I'd say freshman to sophomore is where I made pretty big strides. I ended up starting, one game towards the end of freshman year. And then that kind of catapulted me into playing, 3-year starter. And the first year there was so much learning, but that's where it kind of moved over.
Yeah, but I think it shouldn't go unsaid that this didn't just happen to you by accident, right? I mean, there was a lot of work that went in to create the player that you ultimately became. Was there anything that you had to, I guess, like overcome in your mind about like, hey, I'm not really used to being the star guy to become that person?
Yeah, I think generally a theme of my career was I was never the fastest, the most athletic. I was the tallest for the most part, and
the most handsome.
That definitely was not the trait.
Yeah, not in elementary school. Sheesh.
But I had to focus a lot on mechanics. So you say, what did I do? The most to help me get there? As I worked with the quarterback coach starting in 8th grade. On like a weekly or bi-weekly basis, like really trying to understand mechanics and use my body the best I could because I I wasn't I'm not Jaden Daniels out there.
No, you ran a few times in high school. I remember one time you ran and we were cracking up on the sidelines. You had like a 20 or 30 run against one of the schools from Trumbull. And we were just like, my God, this guy's got to stay in the pocket. But you learned, I think, how to use your body the best you could.
Yeah. Like I think my best 40 time ever was a 5.1. Like I never saw a 4.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, no, it wasn't fast, but I trusted my mechanics. So it was probably 4 or 5 years compounded of working on mechanics, every week and changing, and grateful for my parents were able to put me through that kind of stuff. And I know a lot of kids don't, but that was a lot of work with the body that I was given.
Totally, dude. And I really respect that too, because I think, despite the fact that you did grow a lot and you had long legs and arms, like you don't just grow and turn into a great quarterback. Like those aren't two things that just happen simultaneously. So you put in a tremendous amount of work. What about on the mental side? Like, is there anything where you kind of feel like imposter syndrome or at a place that you have to overcome as you step into that seat?
Yeah. I mean, trust me, everything happened pretty fast, and I was as nervous as the rest of them going into those first couple games freshman year. You kind of learn as you go, and it's truth to a lot of things that we all go through, but you learn as you go. So I definitely had to figure it out.
For sure, man. And I think before we get to the next part and we talk a little bit about how you I guess found the school you ultimately decided to go to and what that process was like, I'm going to surprise you and do a little bit of trivia and maybe ask you a couple questions. The first question is, how many passes did Brandon throw to Mike in high school?
Do I have to give an answer?
You have to give one.
4.
2. It's hard to catch passes when you're riding pine for the most part, but I appreciate that you at least. I think we were down by like 40 points and you threw me one, so thanks there, man. But anyways, man, so talk about, look, I mean, obviously, I think 15 years ago, college football wasn't something you were planning on. At what point in your high school career did you realize like college is something that's in the picture for me?
Yeah, it's a good point because I think I was pretty late to the game. A lot of kids now that you see that are develop early are getting recruited in 8th grade, 9th grade, like. I was maybe 9th grade into 10th grade. I was like, oh, maybe there's something here, but probably more the latter half of 10th grade. Because junior year is when I really kind of had a good season, kind of, I really came into my growth spurt and started really playing well. So it really, freshman, sophomore year, like college football was not even a thought.
Was it aspirational or not even?
It was sort of aspirational, but it seemed far-fetched. Sometimes I'm too rational in the way I think. And
fair.
There's big dreamers out there. I think I was somewhere in the middle where I knew what I was, but, also had that. But, when you're 5'8" and we're barely playing and like, you're, like Trevor Lawrence and I were probably like the same grade and he was a freshman, like throwing like 5,000 yards.
Yeah.
I was very much a late bloomer. So I'd say junior year, it started to get really serious. That's when I started to like go to camps and, reach out. I forget what the service was, but they would like help you reach out to coaches and do all that stuff. But definitely was pretty late in the game. And I know we'll get there, but like most kids find their schools junior year, and senior year, it's kind of free, right? They just go play and they don't got to worry about it. I didn't have my school until middle of our senior year season. And that's just because of how, Connecticut football isn't the biggest state for football. So definitely went under the radar for most schools.
Yeah, and I mean, did you face a fair bit of rejection in the process or no? Were most leagues warm? Oh, you did?
I got rejected by tons of schools. Yeah. For whatever reason. I already got a quarterback, like even ones that candidly I should have easily been able to play for. But they just wasn't good timing. Maybe they already had their guy or, whatever the case may be.
Yeah. And I know you were looking at a couple schools, Division III and Division I, and I don't even know Division II, but you ultimately decided to go the Division I route. What was the decision there? Like, why that versus maybe a school where you would have been a shoo-in for the starter?
Once I got, junior, senior year, I wanted Division I.
I get it, man.
I wanted it. And I wanted to play at the highest level, and that's, was my goal. And I was willing to maybe take a different route that maybe most wouldn't want to. And, I just chose that route. And because I believed in myself. I knew I was underdeveloped and late bloomer.
Yeah.
But in the back of my mind, I was like, I can play. I can get to this level and compete. And that was my goal. So I had a couple, Division I AA offers that I could have gone to. And I just really wanted to go Division I A.
Hell yeah, man. Well, I mean, I remember at the time you were the only individual from our team that ended up going Division One, and so we were all like shocked and so impressed. But ultimately, when you got there, you weren't on scholarship, right? You were a walk-on. So, like, what is first of all, what does that even mean, and what is it like to be a walk-on versus a scholarship player on a Division One college football team?
Yeah, so it's a good question because I think not everyone knows.
Right.
There's really three tiers of players. There's the scholarship players from the get-go. So you sign an LOI, you have that national signing day, and you get on, and from day one, everything's free. You're a scholarship player.
And now with NIL,
well, from my time there was no NIL.
Understood.
So, but now with NIL, it's like here's a Lamborghini and
seriously.
and an LOI.
Yeah.
And then there's a preferred walk-on, which is what I was. And that's, hey, we really like you. We want to recruit you. We want you to be on the team. But there's only 85 scholarships. And right now the numbers just aren't right. But we want you on the team. There's usually like 6 of those kinds of guys. And I was one of those. And then there's the true walk-on that, goes and does like a tryout mid-year. And, you get a couple of those as well that like want to just, be on scout team. And
do college football teams hold tryouts?
Most of them do. They'll hold tryouts for like their scout team and you could go try out.
Really?
Like mid-year. Yeah, we had it every year.
Would they get to dress for games?
Not usually.
Okay.
No. So like away games, only 70 guys would travel. For context, there's 120 players on a team.
Yeah.
85 scholarships, probably 15 preferred walk-ons, and the rest are just walk-ons.
Yeah. Well, so talk to me about this, man. As you show up freshman year, I imagine you could picture what the pace of play was going to be like. But what was it like to go from, where we played to all of a sudden playing at the highest level? What's the difference?
From where we played at Connecticut, it is an unreal difference.
Yeah. And we should mention, you ended up playing at UConn.
Yeah.
Yeah. We haven't told it.
Well, that story is also an interesting one.
Is
how
it?
I even got picked for UConn.
Well, how did you get picked?
So as I said before, going into our senior year, I didn't have my choice yet. I had some things working, but ultimately didn't have a decision. We were playing New Canaan, where Zach Allen, as many people know,
who is now in the NFL.
Yeah, NFL, Denver Bronco, a big name. So we were playing up against them at home, and 3 of the UConn scouts were there to see Zach. And obviously he ended up going to BC, and now he's, whatever. So he brought a lot of talent. So they came to play him. I had like my best game. I think I had like over 350 yards and 3 touchdowns that game. Next day I got a text, or it's actually a Facebook message from their recruiter saying, hey, like saw you last night. We just had a big injury. You remember Casey Cochran?
Yeah.
There was the week that he got like a season career-ending head injury.
I never knew this story. So the next day they reached out.
Messaged me on Facebook. Curtis Painter was the recruiter, and he was like, hey, we have a spot, for a preferred walk-on. And I was like, I don't even know what that means.
Yeah.
So that's how I got found by, them coming to look at somebody else.
I love that though, man. That's like, hey, look, you had the moment, you seized it, and life happened.
I think the best thing for me, I think a lot of kids know when coaches are coming, and they tense up, or they try. I had no idea they were in the stands.
So true.
I was just playing.
Yeah. Did somebody tell you after the game, oh, so and so was here, or no?
No, I got the text.
Really?
And it was the head coach and the defensive coordinator that were at the game.
You couldn't have had a better crew there.
No, it was like fate. It was honestly fate.
That's unbelievable. Well, look, and so what was it like, right? You get there, and you were talking about Arkeel Newsome. What was the speed difference like?
I remember watching him do the 5-10-5 drill.
Yeah.
You go back. It was unbelievable. Receivers were running 4.4s, where no offense to my receivers, but I think a 4.9 was the best.
Yeah.
So the speed was totally different, and you were playing against, there was 5th-year seniors. One of the 5th-year senior safeties has been in the league for 10 years. The other one is on a Super Bowl with the Patriots. It's like I had big dudes.
And these are grown adult men.
Grown men.
Yeah.
I mean, at the time, they're 22, 23, but when you're 17, they are grown men.
It's unbelievable, dude. And talk a little bit about, like, what was your role on that team from college freshman year, and then how did it evolve over time?
Yeah, so I think it definitely evolves. I think getting on campus, right, you as a walk-on, right, because there was 2 stages of my career. There's the walk-on career and then the post. As a walk-on, you had to be perfect. And I say that in like everything, but obviously you can make mistakes on the field, and everyone makes mistakes, but the coaches are playing with the house's money.
For sure.
So like you have to be perfect off the field. You can't make any mistakes. You can't do anything wrong. like you are on, it's easy for them to just say, okay, no, we'll never get you something. Like you're not.
There's no incentive for them to keep you around.
Right. And I'd say my coaching staff, they never made me feel like I was a walk-on. They treated me the same. So like as a preferred walk-on, you do everything the same as the scholarship player. You're at every meeting, you're at every lift, you're treated the same. The only difference is you don't get paid to be there.
Yep.
There was always a chip, on my shoulder for sure. And the biggest moments they came out were, I remember one meeting we had where, there was, all the scholarship players and us were in the meeting, and we were just talking about kind of, what to expect off-season kind of stuff. And everyone was, the coach was like, hey, and don't forget, you guys are going to get your checks next week. So you got like quarterly checks of like, at the time it was like $1,000.
What if you're on scholarship?
You're on scholarship. Like, I forget the cost of living or something. And I would see kids go buy like sneakers and stupid shit with them, and it would piss me off because I'd just be sitting in the room. Like, I remember one of my buddies who was next to me, like I was like tensing up because I was just so angry, and he was like,
because you're like, I'm doing every single thing.
And it wasn't even that. There's certain kids that just were taking it for granted. And I was like, that just pissed me off. So it fueled the fire. So I always had a saying, like, if a scholarship guy was going 100%, like I had to go 110%, because like you have to stand out, you have to do something. So, freshman year was really, I was just learning, I was doing what I can. I was on scout team. So, most freshman year, redshirt guys will be on scout team. So I was just trying to do the best I could to play against our defense and
make the team better.
The best thing about it is our head coach at the time was basically the defensive coordinator. So he was always watching our side. Now he was 90% of his time was watching, the defense, but I was still there and I played every snap. So, if I had a good practice, he would always tell me about it. And, so that was kind of my role freshman year.
Yeah.
Off season, really, you gotta grind. They're not fun.
And were you expecting that? I mean, look, you went from being kind of like the star guy in high school to now all of a sudden you're back to the bottom. Is that a weird transition, or did you expect that?
No, I mean, I expected it. A little bit of, like I said before, I was maybe overly rational than some other guys who maybe thought, and, I think over my career that probably played for me and against me in ways. I think it, fast forwarding to now, I think it played well in my business career, but at the time maybe not as much.
And that's something I want to close with, because there's a lot more to this than just football. And I want to get there, but I am curious, like, because your role evolved freshman to sophomore to junior to senior year, and ultimately you did earn a scholarship. So what happened between then and graduation?
So I spent that whole first year, not on scholarship, was there for the summer. So for those that don't know, like, football players are pretty much on that campus for 4 years. Like, we left for 2 months every year.
Yeah.
So for the 4 years we were home for 8. And, one of the years when we went to a bowl game, we didn't even have a Christmas break. So it was really like 7. So you're pretty much there the whole time.
Yeah. It's a year-round thing.
And again, I wasn't being paid at the time to be there. So I had to, choose to be there.
And you're not going to, and I don't think you had NFL aspirations, right? So like you still have to maintain your coursework and get good grades and then ultimately find a job that isn't football. So it's a lot going on, man.
There was a lot. And I was, at UConn, you had to apply to get into the business school. So I had to make sure my GPA was above a 3.7 because I wanted to make sure I got into the business school. So
that's basically an A+ average, right? A+, whatever.
So there's a lot you had to maintain. So time management was definitely, key.
Yeah.
So basically, my mindset was find a way to help this team. Right. Whatever. If it's not going to be on the field, what is it going to be? And sophomore year, it ended up being like, there's guys on the sidelines doing all the signals and stuff. Right. You probably see that on college football. So.
I saw you in person when you guys came to Boston College.
Yeah. Right.
I saw you.
So like,
signing
I was like, I'm going to be on. I want to be on the sidelines, headsets. I want to be involved. I want to be something that matters. Because like, if you don't do anything that matters, why are they going to give you a scholarship?
And was your goal to earn a scholarship?
Always.
Okay.
Always.
Yeah.
And they kind of gave me a hint, like, hey, if you work hard and things work out, we want you to be on one, but like, there's no guarantee.
Yeah.
So played that role, and that's kind of when things started to go in my direction. I started to become a little bit more of a leader, was really, showing out in certain things. And then one day I get a call up to the coach's office, and like, you're like, shit, like, what did I
What's
do?
this going to be?
What did I do? Because like, no one wants to get called to the head coach's office.
Yeah.
Because we had a hierarchy. When my first head coach is like, it was never you couldn't just go walk into his office. Like, you had to go. Like, I had to get escalated. So like, it was always like, go to your position coach first. If he can't handle it, you go to your coordinator. If he can't handle it, we'll go to the head coach.
Yeah.
So this was like a straight to the top head coach.
Oh, dude, you must have been bugging out.
Oh, I was bugging out. And he was like, hey, how would you like, to be here, like the next 3 years, on a scholarship? And I was like, that's my goal. And he's like, well, I'm going to make that happen today.
That must have been one of the best feelings of your life.
Oh, I was like, I didn't even know like what to do.
Yeah.
I probably started crying in the office.
I believe it.
But he was like, don't say anything yet to anybody because I want to make an announcement to the team. I was like, all right. But like, walked out the door, called my dad. He was like in the middle of a meeting, and he always tells me that to this day he remembers it because it was a pretty big meeting he was in, and he'll always answer because you never know what's happening.
Of course.
So he was like, hey guys, could I pause? And he was like, hey, could you call me back? Or I was like, can I call you back? And I was like, no, you can't. And he's like, all right, what's up? So he was like, grateful he took the call.
Unbelievable.
So I got to tell him that. And I always told people, like, I wanted the scholarship, not because of the monetary value of the scholarship.
How much was it, just to say?
I was in state for UConn, so I think our in-state tuition was like 30 grand. But like a scholarship at any given school is usually a $70,000 a year value.
It's unbelievable.
It's it's a big number.
Yeah.
You're spending nowadays probably
more,
north of 350,000 to send your kid to school, something in that neighborhood.
To have that paid for is really amazing.
Yeah, it was awesome. And I selfishly say like that was a great aspect, of course, but what the scholarship meant was what I was after. It meant that you were worth something to the team, or they wanted to put you on the scholarship. They're not just going to put you on the scholarship because they like you.
Yeah.
It was like a goal of mine. Like if they put me on scholarship, that means, I'm doing something that they value and they want me here.
And you're making people better.
Right.
Like you're a necessary part of this team.
So the money was great. Obviously, I got those checks that I was always pissed off that other people were getting.
But what'd you spend it on though?
Nothing. I just like bought food. I don't even know.
You like went to Moe's.
Subway and Moe's.
Chipotle.
But that was like the best part of it.
Yeah.
And then it was actually pretty anticlimactic because we had a terrible practice. And our head coach was like basically ripping everybody. He was like, you guys all suck. Like, this is terrible. If you guys practice this way, we're not going to win. He's like, except, and it was actually 3 people at the same time. Me and 2 others got put on scholarship. He's like, except for these 3 guys. These 3 guys are great. That's why I'm putting them on scholarship. And everyone was like, you always see those videos like where it's like big sentimental, like
for sure.
Everyone screams. Everyone was like, what just happened?
They're probably so pissed anyways that it's terrible practice.
Oh my God.
Right?
And then like, my boys came up and they were all hyped for me, but like they were like quietly hyped because we know how bad the practice was. But hey, I got it. And it was nice because that was, into my sophomore year. So I already paid the tuition for the first semester.
True.
But I got a refund.
They gave it back.
They gave a whole refund check back. The funniest thing is they gave it to me.
Yeah.
So they wrote me like a check for like 20 grand. And I'm like, this is how do I get this to my parent? Like, I didn't pay for this.
Of course.
So like I figured I like went to Bank of America, like transferred it to my dad, but that was so it was almost like as if I got it starting the year, which was awesome.
It's really amazing, man. And what I love about it too is that I think sometimes people picture scholarship players as like the star guy on the offense that everybody knows, but like there's a lot of truth to the fact that you had a role to play, that you played so well and exceeded expectations. Like that is an important message too, that just because you're not the star guy doesn't mean you can't, outperform.
Right. You got to find value, and I think that works with just about anything and
for sure.
People's career, like find a way to be, everyone's replaceable. That was always the theme. Like you could be replaced tomorrow, but like find a way to make it hard to replace you. And, I will be the first to say was not a stellar player. I didn't play a ton of plays. I played, but it wasn't, as much as I wanted to. And that's a whole different story of a new head coach coming in. We had, 4 offensive coordinators in 4 years. So we had a lot of crap going on at UConn. I guess part of my story that we didn't uncover is when I got my scholarship removed from me. That was a frustrating day. So we got a new head coach. It was into my sophomore year. We're spring ball. So that same semester I got it. That spring ball, I had probably one of the best spring balls of my life. Like I was QB1. It was, I had one of the best. My offensive coordinator at the time, his name was Rhett Lashley. He's now the head coach of SMU. And he came in and he looked at me. He was like, Brandon, I'm going to be honest. Wasn't expecting that.
Really?
And that's kind of a theme that I've kept my life, is most people weren't expecting what I was going to do. And he was like, yeah, I honestly was not expecting any of that from you this spring. You definitely put us in like a tough spot, which is great for you. And I was like, coach, that kind of pisses me off because most people say that. Like you just totally wrote me off in the beginning of spring ball. And then I ended up playing with the ones. Our new head coach at the time, shortly thereafter, was like, hey, man, I don't know what your old coach told you, but I can't guarantee you this scholarship anymore. I was like, he said that to like 3 kids. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. Like, I just had the best spring ball of my life, like playing with the ones.
Yeah.
And you just ripped this from me. I had to make a decision. Like, my offense coordinator came to me like, hey, dude, I'll help you out. I've never heard of this happen to anybody in NCAA. I've been doing this for a long time. Never once, character of the head coach I was under.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'll help you go wherever you want to go. Like, if you like, I wouldn't stay. And I was like, all right, well, now I'm sitting there as like a 19-year-old. Like, I got all my friends, like
Totally.
life is here. Business school is going well. Like,
you're going to get a degree.
I'm, and now I got to think, am I going to go transfer somewhere and start this all over? That's kind of where I was like, all right, I'm maybe I was a little too rational with my thinking. I was like, I'm not an NFL guy. Like, I kind of know where I am. Let's stick the course that I know is going to help me in the long run. So I ultimately stayed. And I remember my brother, I called him because I was like, dude, I want to quit. Like, this is ridiculous. Obviously,
totally get it.
I was emotional. He was like, dude, he sent me, you ever see that meme of the guy picking at the wall and there's the diamonds on the other side? And
of course I have.
Right. He sent me that picture and he was like, dude, you never know. You're so close to that. Like, just keep grinding, keep working.
Yep.
And so that is something I had like printed out and I always looked. I was like, you never know. You're one break away from hitting the diamonds. So I just worked harder. I was like, it was probably stupid of me, but I was like, I'm going to get this back. I'm going to figure out a way to get it back. And I worked my ass off and, continued to help the team and tried to, like, even if it was like a conditioning test, I was like, I'm going to try and beat everybody that I can, like whatever I could do. Because I wasn't the strongest. So I wasn't outlifting anybody on the team, but something endurance wise to put me above. And
absolutely,
ultimately, where the story goes back. So, I ended up getting it back again and on a recurring basis. And it was almost like I never lost it, but I did lose it. The 2 other kids that happened to, they left.
No way. Oh, yeah.
I was like, dude, I'm going to stay. I want to, I love UConn. Like, I'm going to try and figure out a way. So, yeah, kind of that mentality helped me. It has helped me a lot, is just to always, if you work hard for long enough, you do the right things, usually the right things happen.
Yeah. Well, I got to give you credit because, look, consistently from the start, I think I voiced to you some concerns over the last, call it 9 months, this YouTube thing. And your response is always like, just keep doing it. Just keep doing it.
Yeah.
Like, with no emotion involved. You're like, dude, keep doing it.
Right.
Right. And I feel like that's kind of how you've attacked everything in life. It's just like, get up every day and do it again.
Right.
Right. And I feel like that's how you do things now because you no longer play football, right? You're not an NFL quarterback. However, you've run the New York City Marathon. You're, devout in the gym. You're very, I would say, stout in your faith. Like, you just have rigid routines that you refuse to compromise.
Yeah.
And I would say that's not something common for a lot of people these days.
Yeah, I just think in order to be successful, you gotta, you have to do those things, right? And, there's routines that I've built that I couldn't imagine not doing. You want to stay healthy and, you're going to have reasons why you want to stay healthy. I see my dad as an example. He's 61 in the best shape of his life, like playing with his grandkids. Like, that's a great reason to be healthy for. And, also to be, the best at your job and all these things. And I just think what I took, resiliency compared, with sort of that mentality of, there's always just one knock away from something really good happening.
For sure.
Just kind of keeps you moving forward. And hopefully, I found a job that I really enjoy. I work with great people that I really enjoy working with. And, working with business owners that are usually, it's like a family owned company. And those are the types of clients that we work with. It means a lot to them. And they've honestly have done similar things to me where they have put their, blood, sweat, and tears into something, and it means a lot. So definitely have taken that, to the working world, and it's worked out so far.
Well, awesome, man. And I guess in closing, right, as you look back on this journey, I'm sure there are a lot of things that you might have done differently, or maybe there aren't. But is there one kind of takeaway that trumps all about the lesson you learned about resilience or perseverance that you continue to work with today?
I think it's the cliche, if you get knocked down, you got to just get up.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's as easy as maybe I make it sound, because
no, it's not.
Life knocks you down in so many different ways, but there's always one way to, if you don't do anything about it, you're just going to be in the current position you're in. And if you're upset with that, then you got to make a change.
Awesome, man. Well, I can't thank you enough for coming on.
Appreciate it.
I'm amongst a group, for those that don't know me in real life, of highly successful people. Brandon is one of them. he's tall and handsome, and it pisses me off. But it's good to be around guys like this because it makes me want to be great. And I think about that picture all the time of the guy mining for diamonds because I feel like here on this podcast, I just got to keep chipping away, right?
Absolutely.
We're seeing the impressions go up. We're seeing the engagement, but I'm years and years away from where we need to be. But as long as I keep chipping away, that's where we will be.
Absolutely.
So if you enjoyed, guys, consider giving it a like. If you hated it, dislike it and throw me some hate in the comments. But I appreciate you, Brandon. Thanks for coming on.
I appreciate it.